hope you all feel comfortable here, and you have listened to today. I hope most of you have listened also yesterday's lectures. So what was the most intriguing idea? What were you thinking about a little bit more during those days? What popped into your mind? What inspired you? Maybe. Please. So who is ready to start?
Okay, I start from somewhere because my mouth is warm.
Yeah,
so
you're warm.
I continue. But I think one kind of point where I have come back and back again during these 2 days is the relationship between knowledge and, let's say, more emotional and kind of connective, active, feeling-based relations. So to what extent in this transition that we need to do towards more ecological lifestyle, to what extent we can kind of rely on knowledge, and to what extent we need this kind of more close or touching ways of being. And I think also your talk very well, with many examples, illustrated that how to communicate ecological knowledge in the way that it would be felt, that it would be kind of emotionally present. So that's something, and probably it's like different ways how to think about that, but quite probably there are some sort of relation in that one cannot be without the other, or one supplements the other. But now, again, this leads us to the kind of more practical questions that how to make this integration.
Yeah, I have a thought here, listening these talks, and I'm keep thinking about that if we're talking about extinction and all these environmental topics, it still sounds that something that this is something outside of us. This is that it doesn't contain us. How to realize that, how to make people to realize that this is not a difference than having a cancer or some very serious disease. That this affects every one of us. It's not something what happens somewhere distant from us. Yeah, this is one wondering what I'm having these days here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, maybe we have built this distinction willingly, for example, in our education and in our living style. But Aveliina, what was your most intriguing or inspiring thought you have this in this conference?
Just continue what has been said, that I think that knowledge itself does not convince anybody. It only helps you to reinforce what you already feel and give the directions for action that would be meaningful and useful. But I have seen and experienced it myself that with facts or knowledge you cannot convince anybody of the emergency or necessity of nature or the situation of nature. You either want to listen it or you don't. But scientists' hands fall very short when it comes to creating this feeling upon which we can set knowledge, scientific knowledge about what will happen. So what will create this feeling and how is this developed? There are so many factors, probably from childhood and probably also from school to experiences. But among that, I think the most important one is the there is definitely a word about it which I don't know, but the cultural surrounding of us and the overall kind of setting of feelings that are spread in the society. So when we have overall acceptance of treating, of using, let's say, shopping centers as the most important places in the society, then this is a normalcy of its own. While how this has developed and how to not reverse it, but how to develop something similar for this ecological emergency that we have to really build in a society feeling about the surrounding being very, very important. And then you need all this knowledge to cope with it. But creating the feeling is the task of those who talk, write, draw, use words that give, you covered it well, the words that express rather feelings than something very technical and so on and so on. So maybe I take something from this. We still need to bridge this gap that exists between this scientific part and how this translates also into, or how it feeds the feelings and emotions that actually raise up the willingness to prioritize nature.
Yeah, your reactions.
This, I think, also relates to the kind of, I don't know, to what we are striving or what are our aims in the kind of ontological or general sense. Because, of course, like scientific knowledge also, it wants to have certain general awareness and certain stability and to create kind of broad understanding of the world. For me, I think this bioaccumulators, yesterday's talk was very telling in the sense that we perhaps also need something that is can be called necessary imperfection, or we need to have some kind of flaw, some certain irregularity in the understanding and in the system to kind of make this change and to kind of find new ways of relating with the environment. So it may be that also by creating these borders and lines between ourselves and the environment, we are kind of creating the kind of false stability or kind of a false understanding that everything is still okay. And by doing this, we are able to kind of block this idea that there is a disease somewhere also inside. But how this necessary imperfections or also perhaps necessary irrationality, how this can be like brought up or how it can be triggered. That's an interesting point.
Can you elaborate that idea actually? What do you precisely mean by necessary imperfection? Can you even bring an example of that from nature, for example? Are there examples?
If you ask like this, I think I'm a little bit in trouble, but I will start to think about all the, non-functional behaviors in nature, like play behavior, like for instance.
Seemingly unfunctional.
No, seemingly, also like non-functional. Really. All the things where you can like think of that animals are doing something because they really like it or just by kind of fun and this excessive kind of activities. Yeah.
Yes, because I was thinking this playing example from today's neuropsychological studies. We know really clearly why humankind has invented dance, theater, singing, games with rules, and so on. Why we do it? Because they all develop this prefrontal cortex that causes a lot of trouble and also causes a lot of good things. So actually all those activities are not needed. Nobody needs football, probably soccer. But
Many
we need
disagree.
Yeah, many disagree. And why we do it? Because you can give a ball to everyone that please take it to the gate and it's all fine. But no, we need that playing, and we know why we do it because it develops this. It has hidden value, and today we know it. But those activities are so old, and maybe it's also those hidden functions are there somewhere. But yeah.
No, it was just in Timo's talk also, what I got, what I thought that is that it was somehow perceived, this umwelt and that changes in it as animals, they experience the change of their world, but they don't understand it themselves. But then under here when the question was asked and you answered, it seemed to me that we think that we understand how our umwelt changes, but we don't understand at all. As humans, we basically would have no knowledge of it, of these changes, of the collapse around us, if we wouldn't have the scientific evidence, to the point that that probably the inability of us to comprehend or understand the changes around us being dangerous to us. This is also linked to the evolution of us. That within the evolutionary process, we are not designed, or we have not designed, but we are not evolved to recognize these kind of dangers that surround us now. The sugar, the asphalt, the loss of species, these are non-topics in an evolutionary terms. They have never been the driving force. They have never been dangerous because they have never existed in our evolutionary timescales. So we are now in kind of like a darkness of our own. We have things that endanger us, which we don't want to recognize as, and we won't recognize as humans being evolved into this, being evolved over time scales, and now in this completely new situation. And what it also means is that even vice versa, we yearn towards those we are not considering, let's say, loss of species and the simplification of landscape around us dangerous because we evolutionary have rather evolved towards correcting the environment around us, creating a little bit order around us. It was a safe space, but we were never able to create such order that we see nowadays where cities and asphalts and buildings have been built. So it's kind of like as this in what biologists call the supernormal trigger of some kind that is similar to the tests that have been made with by Nico Tinberger, where he put very large egg under the
herring gull.
Yes, gull. Yes, and so for this bird, or for maybe many birds, the large egg is a good egg. I want to bring my chick out of this very large egg because it is probably a good egg and good chick comes out of it. And then, but if he put really large egg, like abnormally large egg, the gull still wanted to and really wanted to
Hutch,
yes, sorry. And this was considered as kind of the birds not having the upper limit for this egg size, because this is evolutionary impossible. This is physically impossible to develop such an egg that will be, on this order. And we similarly don't recognize when we have created such order and such magnitudes of, sugar fat, food, asphalt that are in the range of being dangerous and wrong.
Also wealth, commodity.
Yes, everything, like the energy consumption as a whole. So we are in a very oblivious state regarding our perception of the change of our Umwelt. Yes?
Yeah, but by the scientific knowledge, we know so well about the dangers. We have created some 300,000, 350,000 chemicals by humans, which doesn't exist in nature. So they are human-made chemicals. And we have tested only maybe 2,000 of them, how dangerous they could be, these chemicals, for the health of humans or for the environment. But we still use these chemicals. They are in everyday life in everywhere. Most of them are staying in laboratory, but still there are a lot of chemicals in everyday life, in everyday use, what we are putting into the environment, about what we don't know what they are doing in the nature. And in the same time, we know that it's potentially dangerous for us, but we are still doing it. Mm-hmm. So we know that we are doing harming ourselves, but we still keep doing it.
Do we know then? Something like triggered. I don't have. It's not maybe a clear question, but somehow it. I have this impression as we have this contradiction between like emotions and knowledge. Like we have knowledge, but we don't have enough emotion to start acting. What triggers emotions? What is the root of emotion? What do you think? So how get that kind of emotion that makes us acting? What could be the cause of emotion?
There are people who always say yes when aesthetics come to play. Maybe it is linked with rather kind of more ancient ways of perceiving the world rather than knowledge-based. It's just what we see and how we like it, how well we feel ourselves in this via beauty.
Yeah, one way where to art or beauty or ugliness maybe even. Yeah, okay. What you thought? What could be a root of this activating emotion? What do you think?
Emotions. I have understood from Arro Toomela's lectures that this is as filters, how we are filtering the information, mm-hmm. or how we perceive the environment, that yes. we can't receive all the information what is coming from the environment, mm-hmm. so we are putting mm-hmm. between the filters mm-hmm. to automatize the
and how to evoke this emotion that makes us act to, for example, related to those chemical stuff we put in the environment, how to get this emotion to make us stop to do that, for example.
One way is a danger, to realize that that we all hope that that government has the power and the knowledge and the resources to solve all the environmental issues, or all the issues. Because it's during the last maybe 50 years it has been so that the government has solved all the issues. So we hope that they have controlled all the chemicals, and we trust in government that that there is someone who has taken care of the things, and things can't get very bad because some agency is coming and cleaning up everything, so that hard thing or bad things can't happen to me because I pay taxes.
That is all right. But your thought?
Well, I think also like emotions have their context and probably their kind of evolutionary history, so they have their own way of functioning and their own kind of logic in the sense. And I like this idea that is kind of dangers that we are meeting now are such in such scope that we do not have this kind of tools or really way of handling them. I mean, thinking about like planetary boundaries. There's no any like evolutionary experience in human species that we have prepared us to work with planetary boundaries, for instance. So, but I think in regard to like emotions, we have like many different kind of inputs that can help us or that can serve to work with environmental crisis. One is emotions and affects and kind of feelings. Then there is a knowledge and scientific understanding, and then there are also like social norms probably. So what is accessible, what is not accessible, and in many different levels, starting with like laws, but also kind of group-based norms. So what is, and then I think what's relevant is how these different aspects are connected with one another. So where we can develop the connections and when one can support and kind of relate with another. So one doesn't help, but we need like connectivity.
Yeah. Do you want to?
No. It was the social norm was what I tried to express in a very very first. That's exactly what is needed. But maybe we just evolve through that this situation we are in this very dangerous situation as species, as a global biodiversity complex. We have ourselves made it, but it is also, and it is completely wrong path in a term regarding our own responsibility with the brain and with knowledge that we have gathered. We are failing ourselves and our future, but we are. I'm just guessing, or just an idea, not even a good idea, just that we probably evolve through that eventually to some future form of impoverished planet with or without people, but it is interesting to think in the terms of what the future will bring in a near and far terms, depending on our actions nowadays. Is it so? Do we have the feeling only, or is it really so that we are in a very crossroady place in a history, or maybe not, or are we? We as a scientist, we have the knowledge that yes, we probably are setting the path, but I don't think that this is yet become a general knowledge that we really can today choose different directions. And then it is obvious, even if we ourselves doubt it, whether we are able to choose different directions because of the long lags that we have, and then the long and very dready and slow development and acceptance and of the things and very slow reaction. Maybe we only have one path still.
Yeah.
But how to give more voice to that kind of alternative futures, and also how to give like more voice to non-humans? You had a very interesting kind of reflection after your talk with Hasso about artificial intelligence, kind of shaping the future and kind of negotiating between humans and non-human species. So what are the ways how we can?
Asking me
or anyone.
Yes.
We talked a little bit during the lunchtime. It's appeared in our table also. We talked about this giving voice for the different species, but the different species doesn't need a voice. They don't need to be represented in parliament or so on. They can live without the parliament, and they have lived for billions of years without the parliaments. The only thing what is needed to control is our species, that we need to give away the right to make decisions, because we have shown that we are not able to make wise enough decisions. So we are not adults in this sense. So we can't control and rule the other species just like this.
Actually, from psychological view, it's like coming back to this original question. Actually, we all have the same question: what to do? We know that emotion, behind of emotion, is a thought. Always, when you think about yourself, very few of your emotions are interpretation free. You interpret that something is wrong, something is bad, threatening, scary, whatever. It's always a thought. So my claim or my hypothesis is that maybe also in environmental topics, still there is not this thought clear enough in many people's minds to make the interpretation, okay, this is dangerous. And what is science in that sense, in this semiotic sense? Science is one of the languages. Some people talk science, some people don't. And scientists, through that language that is part of their own world, they see things other people don't see, and they see it in very specific way. It's methodologically strict way. They see the world. They see that, okay, danger is coming. And they get emotional oftentimes, isn't it? And it means that I think that still it's not a question. Sorry, I'm moderator. Sorry for that. The point is that it's not separate the questions whether they have knowledge or emotions or what we should do. But the point is that knowledge can be constructed differently. When knowledge is given from outside, then it's not your knowledge. Then it's actually not knowledge. Okay, it's factual knowledge. But when knowledge is constructed from yourself with help of experts, but you construct it, you make it your own. And with many hours of hard thinking and making mistakes and making failures. And then you have that knowledge or this deep understanding, and then please.
No. There was one lady for a long time already. Right?
Okay, very good. We have Mike here, and also we have one question here in web. But please. Mike is coming.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tina. I was curious, I think it came a question also from before. There's a lot of mention of the need for people to realize urgency and be more aware, be more knowledgeable. But at the same time, I think of how do we balance and keep the attention of who is responsible, or we know that the power relations are not equal for everyone, and so a large groups of people have been disregarded, or those powers have been taken away. So there are tension points where you can put more pressure in, and how do you balance of bringing attention to big groups, but at the same time not to dissolve the pressure points where the action can be brought, and you hold so much knowledge and that can be brought. Do you come across in your work, or do you come across for those questions yourself?
Wonderful.
I like this power games, or it's reminded me how teachers are talking with the kids about the environmental issues quite often, or the responsibilities that they're talking with underage children about responsibilities, that you must take responsible about sorting the waste and acting differently. These kids has never done anything to the earth yet. They just dream about having similar wealth and the goods and so on as they see from their parents. They haven't they haven't done yet. It's the same as look what they are doing in Africa or what they are doing there in China. That this is nothing but what we are doing here in Africa. The rest of the 97% of the people on Earth still dreaming about such a wealth what we are living. Where
I don't think it is like a universal dream that everybody dreams. Like children start to dream.
No. I didn't want to say that they dream similar life like this, but blaming them look how they are treating the ecosystems there and so on. That this is our responsibility, and that we can't bring this responsibility to the kids, and we can't bring to the nations who hasn't participated on this collapse.
But I was thinking about your question from the perspective of right now there is a Prima Vista conference event going on in Tartu, and during that there is this kind of thought hall called Biotoopia Embassy, where people talk like 5-minute slots about impossible things and utopic things. And I was giving a small talk there day before yesterday, and then I thought about impossible, how to achieve impossible. And I think it is so that there are many things that we have considered impossible during our society history. Maybe 200 years ago it seemed impossible that women are chairing the session here.
Or talking.
or go to elections. Or it seemed impossible to one generation that the slavery would disappear. And it seemed impossible, not to mention technical things, but also that most of us seemed impossible probably, but also many social achievements were impossible until the moment they developed in somebody's head. And from this moment they became possible and started to develop and started to gain strength, and sometimes through small group who is being persistent, working towards it, and in one point reaching to some kind of turning point where the impossibility turns into a social norm, where it is suddenly accepted by the whole society through some event. But it takes these steps of first imagining the impossible to be possible and then moving towards it. Right now we consider living in harmony with nature impossible. Like not possible because, all of this, we don't have evolutionary capacity, there are too many, there are Africa, children don't care, everything, it's so impossible. But it is impossible only to the moment when we ourselves start to consider it possible and start moving towards it, because it is not impossible. Totally.
As Mihkel also said in the end of your speech, it's this lifestyle of us is only one way to be human on that planet. And most of the lifestyles are quite different from this way. Yeah. So I really would like to citate one of my friends who said that let spare the pessimism to better times. We cannot allow pessimism about human beings as well at the moment. Meanwhile, I take one question from web as well, and then you will be the next. Yeah, Janus asked a bit time ago about plant blindness. Plant blindness means we tend to underappreciate the flora around us. Who's the first responder who should help us to get rid of this blindness?
Yeah, your presentation talked also about only animals, umwelt. What about fungi and plants, umwelt?
I think that we have like different tools for different aims or different like objects, and umwelt concept works better in regard to like animals and thinking and understanding them. In regard to plants, we probably need other tools, and well, Aveliina is a better specialist here, but well, noticing plants, noticing the kind of richness of forms and patterns and shapes and all this diversity that there are, probably in a kind of aesthetic or perceptual aspect is something, a good way how to relate them. So we do not need to like kind of try to imagine how it would be to be a plant, which could be again an interesting exercise. Well, time schedule, passing time is probably very much different. But yeah, I think there are other ways of relating with plants.
Yeah, that is a good thing. How is it that it is not embarrassing not to notice the world around us? How is it not the thing for an educated and cultural person to be aware of the processes, functions, diversity of our world around us? How is it acceptable to finish a school without recognizing at least part of the diversity around us and knowing its functions? But somehow we consider it acceptable that you have to have read this book and that book and third one, and you have to know how to calculate the matrix, do matrix and integral calculations, but you can exit the school without knowing the tiny things and larger things that make up the world. And in this talk, I can't say, sorry. Today's talk, there was also mention of, and I also myself talked about the shifting baseline, and it somehow, again, we put the blame of children. They don't know plants anymore, or they don't recognize this or that. But how should they recognize? They don't born with the knowledge of the plant determination book. It is up to adults to create this information sphere where they exist and get to know all these 200 names that we have had historically for, let's say, cowslip. But it is, of course, up to adults again to look. But yes, we need better social norms regarding this.
This is what I meant also with my presentations, that maybe we should start for first that kids are starting to recognize that there are different types of life forms.
Yes.
And then they are starting to learn what are the names of these different life forms. That recognizing first that they are different. It's quite often, it seems to me, that they see in the biology classes, they look at the photos and they need to remember that this photo refers to this name and so on. So it keeps the distance from the learning itself. Yeah.
But I know the answer. I know the answer for that. And thank you for that question, because actually this is not the only problem of biology teaching. We know from one of my favorite scientists is Stella Wozniacki, and studying how understanding of stuff develops. And it's after like tens of years empirical studies, she says that a child's mind develops as similarly as scientific process. What we do today, we give them the outcomes of science, like ready-mades. Okay, here is humankind at the moment, please consume it, swallow it. But actually, a child's thinking develops like those scientists in your field, when they started, for example, Linné or whoever started to for example, classify plants, understand, okay, there are different kinds of plants, how to classify them. And actually, children should be taught in like first, second, third grade, like scientists in 17th century, for example, and also in physics, also in math. Also in chemistry, because this is the place where phylogenegy and ontogenegy, whatever, are like resembling each other. Our thinking is able to go through those processes in a logical way, but not start with today's like quantum physics or whatever. And this is the problem in whole education, actually. And exactly, they have to start understanding, from really this physical appearance, how they look, how are they different, and so on. But we start with classifications. But classification is the end point of thinking. Sorry for that. There was a question long ago. I hope you remember what was the question.
Yes, thank you. I have notes, no problem, I can remember. And it actually links with what you just said. Okay. Because I started thinking about this concept which was kind of hanging around in your talk. The idea of the limits of the capacity of the human Umwelt. Which was there, and if I try to think on that maybe the human Umwelt really is too small to acquaint all this complexity of the current ecological crisis. Now, to me, it seems that the probable answer, like there's some kind of an answer to that question, it itself can exceed the limits of this human Umwelt. Like seemingly, science will be the one answer, like in the disguise of this, we will give you the answer. But wouldn't the problem be that the answer yet again will be bigger than the Umwelt can contain? And because the problem is that we don't have to fit it into the whole shared human Umwelt. We have to get this low baseline, which is shared by most of us, which is a much smaller nominator in how Umwelts go. But so and now back to this trickster logic, introducing imperfection. Maybe it's not a possibility, maybe it's a necessity. Like we have to squeeze this human Umwelt to get more crooks and nooks where weird thoughts might pop up, which are not science, which are maybe even wrong from the perspective of science, but which will start pushing us to the right way. May it be some kind of a crazy nature protectionism or whatever, something similar like we have right now. We have esoterics and stuff like that. Right now they kind of push, let's say, to the wrong direction usually. Earth is flat, it doesn't help us much. It's better to think that it's round and share stuff. But so maybe the nooks and crooks and ideas from this imperfection, maybe they are esoterical for our scientific perspective. Maybe they are more abstract. Maybe they are even religious. But maybe they might offer some ways to bring more us together into this understanding in our Umwelt that things are bad and changes must be done. Like, for example, the problem of could we understand everything about the chemicals we produce? Probably, maybe, but from a historical perspective, it's too late because it's also a big problem. It's also bigger than we can fit in any real-time sense. So how do we evoke emotions was another question. Yes, great tool. Nothing to do with science. So how can we do it? But yes, tricksters, let's introduce this necessary imperfection. We need thoughts, weird thoughts, which push us the right way. We maybe need weird players, small players who can play with the emotional tools. But maybe the problem is that it's maybe a solution, but is it too dangerous from the scientific perspective? Should science play that dirty? Or is it actually just a question of control? Nobody dares, science and whoever else, nobody dares to give away the control. Let's say the truth-knowing monopoly.
So how do you comment, scientists?
I like it a lot, and I think this is probably what you said about widening and allowing the different ideas to develop and into crazy directions, because probably this is the only way we can step out of this limited view or sphere. And the key of innovation, or the basic basic thing in innovation, and I don't mean any technical innovation, but even innovation of thought, is that it is unknown. It's unexpected, and it comes from unexpected and unknown places. I think it is changing nowadays. There was a time in science, in scientific thinking, where it was more fixed, that allowed less kind of very quickly labeled kind of divergent or crazily too divergent ideas as totally crazy. But I think we are more, there is more flexibility now because what you brought out, the necessity to think even broader is so clear that we are in many places, in many ideas, we are going around in circles and don't really come up with the solutions of bridging those necessary culture, science, emotions, humans, norms. So there is need for this craziness, as you put it, I think.
Yeah. Well, your question was very rich and with many nuances. I would perhaps comment this umwelt aspect, and I think indeed in this ecological crisis and climate change, there are issues that are so huge and so unprecedented, in the sense that we as human species, we do not have any previous experience with that. And it's okay for a science for most part, but it's then very difficult to communicate this in the common social communication in the way that they would be understandable. And we can think here with the concepts of boundary conditions or kind of any system. It needs some context, some surrounding in which to develop. And if the problems appear in this kind of context or in these boundary conditions, we just do not have natural access or kind of natural comprehension of that, what is going on in these frames in which we have developed, so to say. But on the other hand, and here referring back to the earlier discussion or on teaching and education, I think we're also using too little of our umwelt, in the sense that most of learning plants, for instance, it's about visual recognition, and it's even often not about the plants but about the drawings of plants. So how you can learn nature when you are not in contact with nature. And as a species, we have many other modalities. We have smell. We can perceive smell. We can touch things. We can kind of perceive their texture and so forth. And this would using these other modalities of our umwelt that are not so often taken advantage of would help to have a more rich connection and also more easier discriminations in nature between different species.
I started to wonder, I don't know, maybe it is an answer for the question or maybe another question, but somehow the society has perceived the idea that science brings somehow the control over the environment, brings the knowledge how to make things stable and brings us the resources. So it wasn't quite far in the past when all the scientific proposals had to contain a paragraph about how this project is good for the society as for the economic terms and so on. So always the idea, or not always, but for quite long it has been the idea behind the science to control the uncontrollable environment, to make the system works, to have the perfection, reach to the perfection of the life. But we know that in such a complex systems as the environment is, we can't have, we may have some patterns, we may have some kind of rules like theory of gravity and so on, what we can't explain. But maybe we need to be honest with society that we can't control. All Estonian universities has this courses about the environmental management. That this is something that we can still manage the environment. That this is manageable things. But we don't have any.
We have been very capable of managing.
But what we need to manage is how to manage the humans.
Yes, we manage it inside of our own world, and it can be really restricted by some people. Hasso has a question. And then
yes, well, I really don't have a question, but I would like to tell a story, if you allow me. It's that yesterday I had to wait in this bus station here for some 20 minutes, and then I made a short walk by this road next to this small wood, and I noticed that the dandelions, the white dandelions, ülased, they were just blooming and very beautiful now at this moment. And then it reminded me of a certain poem by Estonian poet Arro, maybe some of you have read it. I cannot retell it all, but the idea is that this I of the poem, the first person, he goes to the forest and there are white dandelions, and then somehow he notices that one of the dandelions is looking at him, and then he becomes really enchanted with that dandelion, but he does not dare to touch it, and then he leaves. But at night he has a dream, and the dandelion again appears to him in a human form. She says nothing, but just looks at him, and so he understands that he's really in love with that dandelion. And so after that he goes to the forest again and tries to find the dandelion, but he doesn't find her. But then the result is that the dream will be repeated again and again. And then every spring he goes to the forest again and again, and trying to find the dandelion. He doesn't find her, but still he wanders around in the forest, and so it has become the most meaningful event in his life. That's where the poem ends. And now I think that concerning education, if teachers tell children, for example, that we have 70% of our DNA that we share with plants, it means nothing. It's 70% or 80% or 60% or 7 or whatever. Well, that's just some kind of number. But if we would start teaching small children that the plants are basically like humans, they are very similar to us, and we can get into contact with them, we can relate to them, and we can recall them, and it's possible that they also remember us in a way, and we can return to them and search for them again and again, and it can make our life meaningful. Well, that would be something.
this is really an idea. Anyone want to comment?
Yeah, it's refers to that what you said, Grete, also that at the beginning when we didn't have the knowledge about the environment, about the creatures around us, we we describe them through our stories. We use different ways. So we gave them some explanations why they are looking like this, and it's the same with the kids from the kindergarten. We can show them the diversity of the life, show them different creatures from the bond, just to take and then look with a microscope who are living there, how wonderful they are, and then start to create some stories about who are they and how they live and what they would think and how they interact with each other. And this makes, it doesn't make any sense in scientific terms. We are talking with the kids about the creatures living in the bond on the ways that doesn't refer anything to the science, but in the same time, this can bring the kids the understanding that there are different life forms and they have the different meanings.
If we do it in a way you described, then we take into account how human psyche develops. It's developmental perspective, and it means it's right way to do it, to start from there, and it's really, really reasonable, and it's evidence-based, it's science-based if you do it. Yeah.
I very much like the story that you told, and probably, well, many of us have some sort of weird experiences or connections with other life forms, with nature. And I think what we perhaps should do in education and also in social groups is to kind of give the message that it is okay to be in love with dandelion, that it's not some weird thing, but it's like very, very good thing to like be in the world in this way. And of course it's a kind of generative, it has a generative potential in the sense that it starts to change the person, how it relates with the surrounding, and how it kind of also probably in practice really relates to the environment and influences the environment.
There was a question, I think. Yes.
Ma paraku siiski püstitan selle küsimuse omas keeles, ootuses, et keegi panelistidest või mõõdustaja vestluse Haldur Preili tõlgib ja nagu võib-olla edaspidi panelistid ja muud pädurid võiksid käsitleda seda küsimust. Ma visandan neli tahuka, et kujutage ette näiteks piima, neli tahukat, mille tippudeks ma asetan teabevalla ehk infosfääri, teadvusvalla ehk noosfääri, tähendusvalla ehk semiosfääri ja viimaks väevalla ehk energiosfääri. Ja ma olen kuskilt lugenud või mul on mulje, et inimtegevuse jälg, mida antropotseeni raames vaadeldakse praegu siin konverentsil kaalutakse, on kaasa toonud, et selles nelitahukas on muutunud nii hästi mõõdusuhted kui nurksuhted. Ja nagu ilmastu oma muutustega asetub, mina kuutan ette, et võiks ilmastu kaasavalt õhkkonda asetada ka selle nelitahuka peale, aga ma püstitan panelistide eest siis selle küsimuse, et kas ilmastu püsistamine ehk inimjälje korvamine peaks kuidagi tähendama seda, et inimkond üritaks taastada selle nelitahuka endised mõõdusuhted ja nurksuhted või kas üldse peaks laskma sellel hulktahukal muutuda või inimesed võtavad eesmärgiks suhteid selles nelitahukas kuidagi ohjata või suunata. Well, I try to put it to English. Please imagine tetrahedral egg milk tetraeder consisting of I just repeated in Estonian as I stated, teabevald, nagu infosfäär, teadvusvald, it is noosphere, tähendusvald, it is the semiosphere, and latest väevald alias energosphere, I state the metric and angular relations within this tetraeder have severely changed because of the human activity. Just does the temptation to stabilize atmosphere and the other parts of the nature. Does it mean the endeavor to reinstate those metric and angular relations within this tetraeder, which had place before the mankind performed its activity. Merci.
Thank you. I think we got the question. Who would like to offer your ideas? Are those 4 fields unbalanced? And what should we do? Basically, you should talk about like everything.
Yes,
in your answer.
I think there is the restoration of anything is not possible because we don't have an ideal state and have never been. It's due to the everything changing and everything being changed. We don't have a reference of what is of where we want to aim or what is the balanced system where we want to reach. We need to have the understanding and the priorities and knowledge and emotions, but whether they need to be and whether there is an ideal way to align them, I doubt that.
Yeah, I had something similar ideas. That is it enough to describe some system only through the 4 these spheres, and then definitely there is missing the tile, and describing something is in balance. It's for me it means also that a dream or dream about something is very stable and then something very fixed, and not accepting that things are not balanced, or they are balanced as like a bicycle, that can be balanced only when it's changing, always changing, moving forwards. Otherwise, it's falling down. That the things are changing anyway, and we can't go back on earlier stages, but we can find solutions how to keep going, keep moving.
Yeah, and well, human mind is capable of very huge generalizations and abstract thinking, and well, it has its place and role, but in regard to like ecological and environmental matters, I think we also need to like pay attention to how to relate this with the kind of local practical issues, and in this sense, generalizations, well, doesn't work. And one reference that I want to make here is to the work of Bruno Latour and his thinking of being terrestrial, and also doing the kind of scientific work and abstract thinking while paying attention to the conditions in the earth and the kind of practical matters in the ground. So we may say that this kind of overwhelming generalization and thinking in like abstract terms is more a part of a problem than a part of a solution.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to the poem and about the role in this a bit. That isn't so that we are. I'm sorry. I'm going to myself. I'm going to unfamiliar grounds here. So sorry if I use wrong terms. But isn't it so that humans have the place for religion within ourselves? Like, and for many of us, this is now empty. This place where we have what we have evolutionary used for making for clarifying the world and explaining it to ourselves. We have made it, many of us, we have made it empty, and we have not been able to fill it with really much meaningful. The science itself does not fill it, but the story that Arro told is the story and is the emotion and connection that might fill it. So how can we meaningfully relate and fill this empty place in our souls that we look into so much places to fulfill it. We go into so much trouble to go to therapies, to go shopping, to find solutions from drugs, fungi, perhaps. But maybe it is all a quest to fill this empty space. And if more people can find the meaning in such stories and in such connectedness from nature, this is one solution of its own, perhaps.
I think it's a beautiful idea, and from the view, again, from psychology perspective, it's actually what we all need, definitely, and it's what's the main trigger of our activities is meaning. Yep. And this meaning and the opposite of having this personal meaning, some opposite is being controlled. So religion has become a controlling mechanism for many people during time, during centuries. So it's not anymore meaningful, because when we force something upon other people, then meaning goes away, because we feel only this force and not meaning anymore. And Hasse wants to, wonderful, huh? Sorry, yeah. Can you repeat?
Basically, if you have acquired certain myths and somehow imbued their meaning into yourself, and somehow if you have got certain new attitudes that that maybe pre-existed in your mind, but they started to awaken because of these mythologies and myths that you have learned, then I think that would be a good path to invent a religion. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be a means of control.
Exactly, yeah. If it's not controlling, then it might be one way to get the meaning for your life, and there can be other ways. Wonderful.
So this basically means that we need to learn somehow to recognize how much the rest of the living beings are loving us.
Just open your mind.
Yeah, that they are.
Yes, yeah. As you once said, nature protects us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am just wondering that isn't that empty, so-called empty place that has been filled with religion or mythology or nowadays all kinds of whatever entertainment or shopping? Isn't it just the urge to have simple stories that are catchy and enjoyable, but isn't it the same thing that has caused all the problems, because we have these simple stories that are very catchy but eventually too simple and wrong?
Maybe.
I would say that there is stories are important, definitely, but there are a difference between stories and kind of experience and encounters. I think if I think about this meeting of Artur Alliksaar and White Dandelion, then it is a story, but it's also an experience. And if you kind of put this specific life happening here and now also in the position, or if this is part of that, it gives much more a kind of ground and much more rootedness to this meaning structure that there are for the people that can connect the human and the environment. So not probably just stories, but stories that are lived.
Yeah, but for me, the interpretation of this story was more like that some kind of oversimplification created a compulsory behavior that basically ruined the person's life, because now it was the most important event of the whole life, and he just kept repeating and repeating the same created myth over and over again.
Yeah,
so isn't it kind of...
Like it is a disorder nowadays, indeed, classified as such, but I think the meaning of the story and also when we look into the religion, like what sells in the religion is the feeling of love and positive emotions regarding the connectedness. Yes, and that was also the story in this case. So perhaps there can be love that is knowledgeable without simple story behind it that would also wreck the world if it is correctly built, or how did you say it?
I think this is true, that it ruined the person's life, but basically, we all ruin our lives anyway. So it's just the question of choice, in which way we will ruin our lives. And if we choose the most sublime, the most beneficent, the most beautiful way to ruin our life, then that's the power. Yeah. And if we choose another story, then we also can ruin our life. But that's so sad and depressing, and nobody wants to hear about it or see it. So, and concerning stories, all stories are not friends. They fight with each other. And all stories are not good. Some are better than the others. You have to evaluate stories and myths.
And you probably don't want to know how miserable would its life would be without this dandelion. So actually we create, but it's not the joke. We create ourselves stories and also goals that can be partly unachievable, because it gives us meaning and it makes us push ourselves.
And that is true. You can create a totally, maybe even a good story for yourself by going shopping and spending time with this, but at the same time you ruin the planet. But if this story inside you is a one that is building the respect and cohabitation.
And our brains can be trained only on easy, simple stories. And brains can be trained on really complex stories from childhood on. And so we cannot extrapolate that everybody wants simple stories.
Yeah, and the necessary imperfection has been the phrase that is repeated and repeated again. And I think that's a good example how to kind of deviate from the normal course of action and from our habit. So and that's important. I mean, if you want to reach to like alternative ways of relating with the environment and relating with the nature. So that's a story of that you told.
I think we are coming closer to the what was the solution here?
Yes.
So now it's just a question of how to implement it. But you have brought the examples of how we should teach children, how we should teach them this and that. But my question is rather, can we teach something that we don't believe ourselves, that we don't follow ourselves? Can we teach children to use less mobile phones if we use ourselves and we have made the mobile phones for them? If we don't know the 200 names of the cowslip, are we able to teach it this way, Grete, that you proposed?
I also know that the best way for learning is to teach something. So maybe those attempts to teach children are attempts to teach ourselves. Yeah. But you're right, we are coming to the end of this session, and I actually think that we need a small pause before James, because James is probably wonderful. I see one question there. Can you keep that in reasonable amount of time?
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very complex. It's about eco-semiotics. Somehow, I've been thinking that because the language is so important for humans to express meanings, is there some problem in there that we are trying to always express meanings like through language? And if we try to communicate between species, it's complicated, and it's also kind of a thing that so long we thought that separated us from the animal world, that we are better because of the language, and it makes us so like strict, or we want to things to be like super specifically in some way. Yeah, that kind of ideas I thought when I listened to the presentation. But yeah, do you have any kind of thoughts?
Thank you.
Of that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for a question, and then in relation to the environment, the question of through what different modalities we can relate with the environment and with the nature, it's important, and definitely having this in the level of kind of language and abstraction and cognitive categories, it's not always the best way. So we need to use other modalities, non-human, non-verbal ways of meaning making through bodily perception, using different senses. But also I think, and then this I think is something that also has come out here today, is that using activity or using meaningful action is probably one way of relating with other species, and also working with the environment and environmental problems in a way that there are some change in that. So probably, yeah, also too much thinking is not good.
I was also thinking, would it be useful when we are making semiotic theories, that we make the other ways to communicate more visible? Somehow we can also express that with the language, but we talk about that and make it more visible. I think that would be important also.
Yes.
I think this sounds like a good pause for those journey of ideas, and I thank our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.